invited and we investigate them, so we withhold their results. Recently, the recent one they wrote, somebody wrote a prophet's name instead of writing an essay. He just wrote a prophet's name there, thinking that a miracle will occur for him to pass. By November, they have the chance to sit for the last time for this particular kind of exam. If they are not successful, then they have to transition to the new one that is coming. What makes this one challenging to those people is that some of them might have passed one paper or two papers out of the three. Yeah. But the moment you are transitioning to the new system, the new dispensation, it means you have to forgo those two that you passed or the one that you passed. I don't have any power to stop anybody from going anywhere. But the process is that if you are dissatisfied with the results and you want a remark, you pay your remark fee, and then we give you the chance, and then we appoint neutral examiners.
We need to look at the entry qualification, number one. We look at the training institution. We look at NTC itself. We look at the tech and the student themselves. This is the chain. We cannot exempt anyone at this particular point in time because we want to get it right. And because we want to get it right, we need to look at all the things that happened within the process. And that will help us understand the issues.
Graduates from the colleges of education have to pass the licensure exam.
About the training. There's no doubt at all that our standards of education generally has fallen. Generally, there are very good, excellent results. I've been getting some students from Ashasi, Cape Coast University. They meet every standards, but on the whole, we are having fallen standards. And especially what happened of late, people by correspondence course, Cape Coast University, Winneba, everybody doing some vacation courses. They haven't gone through the rigors of normal academic work to be awarded a degree. And believe it, we in our own school, Ghana Christian International High School, for many years, before we would take you as a teacher, we give them that subject area, mathematics or history, the same WASI paper. And believe it, about 1/3 of them fail, and we don't proceed to even interview them. So I think that there's something basically wrong. I believe that we are teaching people. We are in a digital age, teaching them with analog capacities. They have no access to computers. They don't know how to research. Most of this information, I mean, my 11-year-old granddaughter has more access and can do the so-called English and mathematics, which the teachers are failing. So yes, we need to up our quality of our education. I think that it's a shame that overnight, all colleges of education are now universities. They are giving degrees with the same infrastructure, no library. I went to some schools and I wouldn't mention them, and you will weep. What they call a college is actually less than SAR7 school, that means grade 10, which we used to attend in our library and everything else. So we must, but in this case, everyone who has a degree or diploma has no excuse.
Well, so you've heard from a number of stakeholders from what I just played to you, ending with Professor Stephen Ade, who has been credited with quite a good work at the Ghana Institute of Management and Public Administration and educationist himself. Also, Thomas Musa Tanko is the General Secretary of the Ghana National Association of Teachers. You heard from him. And then also the Registrar of the Ghana Teacher Licensure Examinations, Dr. Christian Adaipoku, as well. So laying the basis for what we saw, quite shocking statistics of the number of teachers who failed this exam, saying that some of them even wrote the names of prophets in their answer booklet, that the prophet will come and help them or something. Some of them wrote their telephone numbers as well, so that when the examiner picks it, you can see the telephone number, and you know what they will do eventually. These are the kinds of things that he said and they spoke about. Now, over 7,728 in total. These are the teacher trainees who sat for this exam. and 1,277 passed. And look at the failure, the number of people who failed, 6,451 out of the 7,728. That represents 83.5% failure rate. The success rate was 16.5%. Now, let's look at some of the basic things that the examiners identified as the mistakes. Take a look. Inability of the candidates to understand comprehension passages. Yes. Candidates could not use the appropriate features of an essay, and poor expressions. Now, the spelling mistakes that we saw categorized under poor expressions, and take a look. So, headache, a number of them got that wrong, spelled it this way. Middle, M-I-D-I-L-L instead of M-I-D-D-D-L-E. Then punctual. You see how they spelled it under the wrong spelling category. Motivation. Look at motivation. So motivation is there. And then pocket money, a very typical social media spelling of pocket money. That's what you see there. And these people who sat for the exam, university graduates from the University of Cape Coast and all. And then also a number of them from the College of Education across the country. There's been a research that some educationists have made reference to, that the graduates from the College of Education who sit for this exam actually do well more than the graduates from the universities. That's University of Education, University of Cape Coast, and so on. We'll touch on that. But then there are some basic issues that comes up when you look at the outcome and the details, that we got to know that some of them have sat for this exam 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 times, and they are still failing. So what is the problem? Dr. Clement Apak is the Member of Parliament for the Bosa South constituency, also the Deputy Ranking Member on the Education Committee of Parliament. He's with us in the studio. Dr. Clement Apak, good morning. Thank you so much for joining us on Key Point.
Good morning, Alfred. It's been a while.
It has indeed.
It is pleasing to share the panel with a colleague.
Indeed.
You know, I am in absentia, but I still monitor exploits on campus and his own important forays in helping to shape the fortunes of our nation. It is appreciated.
Yes, indeed. Thank you, sir.
Dr. Clement Apak, one-time lecturer at the University of Ghana, Legon. In fact, in 2008, my first guest on Radio Universe at the time. Also, Professor Ransford Gyampo, he just made reference to, is the Professor of Political Science at the University of Ghana, Legon. Professor Ransford Gyampo. Good morning. Welcome to Key Point.
Good morning, Alfred. Good to see my senior Dr. Clement Apak here, and just to say that we also admire him from afar, how vociferous he's been and how bold he's always been in articulating issues of national concerns and issues affecting his constituents and all that. So, sir, good to see you.
Well, it's mutual.
Indeed. Also, will be joining us shortly is Martin Bibble. He's private legal practitioner. It's a leader of one of 3 individual bondholder groups, and then also the convener of the Kumipreko Reloaded demonstration. I would also be joined shortly by the director of communications of the New Patriotic Party, Richard Ahiagba, would also be joining us in a bit. But let's get into it now, and as we go on, we'll hear from one of the students who sat for this exam and failed, and the reasons why he says a number of his colleagues failed this. In fact, let's take a listen to him, please.
3 papers: essential skills, literacy, and numeracy. This is my 3rd time of writing, and I have been failed 3 times. So I don't know what to do again. Because I still don't have content to read on. about the mass failure of our NTC exams. You see, one of the major points that we fail is that we don't have the content, what to read, as to which area we should read, and the exams that you're going to write. We only know of the 3 categories you're going to write on: essential skills, literacy, and numeracy. But we don't have any content to read on in order to pass the exam. And also, in addition, we don't have we don't know the threshold as to which marks you get to get the pass mark, and as to which marks you get and you fail. So we are lost in the education settings. We are lost. We don't know which area we are going to. I'm preparing, but to rewrite again. I want to be employed as a professional teacher. If not, that is the only option to set up to get.
Well, Dr. Clement Apak, start off with you. I mean, because this licensure exam came to the committee, and some at the point, these trainees were against it, raised concerns about it, but eventually, this is the 5th year, correct, that they've been writing the licensure exams?
Yes.
Now, you look at their failure rate and the fact that some of them have been writing it for a number of times and still failing. What's the problem?
Well, Alfred, let me say good morning to you and my co-panelist, Professor Gyampo, and naturally to say good morning to the people of Bulsa South. I mean, it is by courtesy of their permission that I sit here as a member of parliament, for which reason I get to be on the education committee, which then allows you to invite me. So I must accord them that needed respect. Alfred, I think I want to start off by indicating that it is not strange or it is not unexpected for persons who sit exams for whatever reason to fail. Mm-hmm. I don't know of any exam that we can say that those who sit for the exam would all pass. For one reason or the other, you would always have people not doing well. But I think why this issue has become topical is because of the colossal number. I mean, even if you look at the history of the licensure exam itself, year in, year out, it has not always been 100%. But when you have over 80% candidates sitting for the exam, failing, clearly this must necessarily draw the attention of the public and in particular stakeholders in the educational sector. It is important to state that the licensure exam is actually backed by law. If you look at the Education Regulatory Bodies Act 2020, Act 1023, it gives the National Teaching Council the responsibility of conducting examination for the licensing of persons who successfully complete teacher education programs. It also gives the NTC the mandate to issue licenses to persons who pass the examination conducted by the council in accordance with what I read earlier. So it is something that is backed by law.
Right.
And for good reason. We had made the determination that, like other professions, it was important to start licensing teachers because it is the standard best practice in most parts of the world. So as a nation, we took the decision that we're going to move away from the previous arrangement where when you graduated from a college of education or you did your teaching degree through a university, you were assigned to teach in the classroom without obtaining professional certification. So the purpose of this licensure exam was to allow for teachers to be professionally certified. And of course, it is not in perpetuity. Once you get a license, there is a range that we are required to renew it. so that we would be in tandem with what we consider to be best practices.
Right.
Now, having given the background, why this is an issue is not just because of the narrative that we are hearing, which is that, some have taken it 2, 3, 4 times. But it is because these persons who have trained as teachers, and I think it is important to emphasize that point, they have trained as teachers. What they then need is professional certification. So they are not even teacher trainees.
Yes.
They have gone through the mill, so to speak. So if they have gone through the mill, and the mill in this case is basically 2 channels. There are those who go through the traditional colleges of education, and this would include both public and private. And there are those who go through universities that also have programs that have been set up or designed to train teachers. So we have the University of Ghana, the University of Education, Winneba, and then we have the University of Cape Coast. What are the dynamics? The dynamics are that we expect that regardless of what avenue one may have gone through to become a teacher, pending certification to become a professional, you would have acquired the basic knowledge, the skills, and the competence to be able to teach in a classroom. And I think that must be foundational,
Right.
regardless of whether you did a degree or you did a diploma. We expect that you should have the basics. Now, for now, the licensure exam is composed of 3 facets: essential skills, numeracy, and literacy. I mean, for the average person, numeracy is mathematics. Literacy is English and related grammar.
Yes.
And of course, essential skills would be to test your capacity in understanding the dynamics within a school system, how to manage a classroom, and all the issues that you would expect a teacher to be able to address if and when they arise outside of the typical academic work, essential skills. So when you have people who ostensibly have gone through primary school, have gone through junior high school, have gone through senior high school, have gone through a university program, through either a distance program to obtain a degree, or have gone through a college of education, 3 years, now 4 years, degree awarding, it then begs the question as to why there is this difficulty in passing the licensure exam. And for me, as a member of parliament, as a member of the education committee, I believe that something is fundamentally wrong somewhere.
So what's wrong? What's the problem?
Well, that's the problem. To be able to find out where the problem is and what is wrong, in my opinion, will require a dialogue, if you like, a hearing by my committee, inviting the stakeholders. So I have proposed that the Parliamentary Subcommittee on Education should convene a sitting and invite the stakeholders, the colleges of education, the universities that the colleges are affiliated with, and the universities that also offer programs leading to the education of people who want to be teachers, the NTC, the National Teaching Council itself, the agency that superintends over and administers the exam, the Ministry of Education, and the Ghana Education Service, so that we can find out where the issue is and why this is happening. Because, make no mistake, we are in dire need of teachers in this country. As a member of the Education Committee and as a rural MP, I know of the acute teacher deficit that we face as a nation and that the people of Busa South in particular face. So when you have almost 8,000 teachers who could be deployed, and yet over 80% of them have failed. What that means is that the number of teachers available to be deployed to address the already existing teacher deficit is woefully reduced. And so it comes as a cost. It comes at a cost to both the nation and indeed those who take the exam. Mind you, they have to register and pay a fee to take this exam. And whilst we are still waiting to get the breakdown in terms of the statistics of the percentages who have failed and where they are drawn from, we can make the general argument that because the state also subsidizes the training of teachers, there is also a cost to the state. We can say plainly that the state is not getting value for money. And so the issues that this rather shocking failure rate are throwing up are many and multifaceted. And so I believe very strongly that we can only get to the bottom of what has gone wrong by summoning the stakeholders and having a conversation with them to find out. In fact, I must add some of those who took the exam and even the organization that represents teacher trainees across the country. But Alfred, let me add this very quickly before Prof comes in. In terms of the current way in which we certify teachers to make them professional and how it has been structured, there has been some difference of opinion between the current managers of state, the MPP and the NDC. In the run-up to the 2020 election, you will notice that we in the NDC, in our manifesto, had indicated that if we were given the opportunity to govern this country, we were going to cancel the teacher licensure exam. We were also going to cancel the one-year national service. We had felt that when you keep them to do national service for 1 year, and after that they have to then register and write the exam, there is a problem there.
Where is the problem?
We believe that by staying home that long, it affects their mental agility. It reduces their potency. We also believe that letting them do national service was also further delaying the ability to deploy teachers in a faster rate to the classroom. So here was our variation of how it was going to be done. We had proposed that a course be introduced in the teacher training institutions, and that course should be a final year course tailored towards preparing them for the licensure component. You take that course in your final year, and then you write. It is going to be a credit course. You write the course. When you pass, you are then licensed. So you don't have to leave college or the teacher training institution, go home and do national service for 1 year, and then pay a registered fee to write the licensure exam. This was our proposal.
So let me understand this. So you acknowledge the fact that the licensure exam is important because it's a way of what? Certifying that this is a person who has the requisite skills and education to stand before children to teach.
That is correct.
That's number one. So you saying you propose to scrap the licensure exam
in this current form.
So were you going to do away with the entire licensing regime, or you were going to do something different?
The licensing would take place, but it is the mode. Instead of making it a standalone and making it post-college, we're going to include it as a course, a final year course within the colleges of education. And you have to take it. Now, if you take it and you don't pass, you don't get the license. But you have to go and retake it within the context of the college. Now, remember that some of the excuses that those who have failed are given is that they don't know the parameters, they have no understanding of what to expect, and what have you, and so forth and so on.
Dr. Park, if you look at the mistakes that we've seen, very basic and elementary.
No, I'm not arguing.
Yeah, I want to find out how staying at home 1 year reduces the mental agility of these people so much that such basic mistakes, the spelling mistakes we saw, and poor expressions are actually affected. I mean, I just want to understand the nexus between.
I see your point, but you see, if you are listening to some of the students that you spoke to, some of them were interviewed by your own network. I listened to the news, I believe at Accra College of Education.
Yes.
But our proposal is what they are also asking for. But we are not by any means saying that our proposal was to allow everyone to pass. But at least it will allow them the opportunity to be properly tutored within the context and confines of the academic institution. All of these that we are talking about, these are persons who have now gone through. They are unable to spell these basic words. Mm-hmm. We are told that, the grammar is porous and what have you. What do we do with them now?
So it's not because they stayed home for 1 year.
No, Alfred, so what do we do with them now? What are we going to do with them? Are we just going to discard them? What are we going to do? And that is why some have suggested that this is even beginning to pose a national security threat. What are you going to do with them? Is it not the case that if it was within the college system, they would have had the opportunity to go back? And if it is indeed that they were deficient in numeracy or literacy, they could retake those courses? So what are you going to do with them?
Professor Ansel Gyampo, I mean, the good thing is that my guests in here are lecturers, they are teachers, so they understand the rudiments of this particular profession and then also the basis for this conversation. So you look at what's on the screen there, Professor Gyampo, and then also that issue that Dr. Clement Apak raises about the length of period they stay at home and how that reduces their mental agility. Is there enough strength in that argument, especially because of how some educationists have described as elementary some of the mistakes that cause these people the failure rate we are seeing? Very basic, that should not necessarily reduce over time, because these are people who are teachers who have gone through either 3 years of College of Education or 4 years attachment to a university, and then they come out. Beyond the fact that they are at home for a year, they sit for this exam and then
a year or more.
Yes. They sit in for this exam and then you see these basic mistakes that are made. Prof.
Well, Alfred, I've been a teacher all my life. From 16 September 1996, I started teaching in some basic schools. I've taught in almost all departments of teaching, from KG to class 1 to lower primary, upper primary, GHS, secondary schools, and to university. I've been a teacher all my life, and I was quite worried and surprised when this news broke. And the first question I asked myself was, what was the essence of Act 1023, a teacher licensure exam? Because I was of the view that if truly there is confidence in what is done at the teacher training centers and the colleges of education, and then you didn't really need another body to want to go and confer licenses on teachers. And so I was thinking that why wasn't it possible for us to incorporate the licensure exam into the curriculum of the training centers, so that once you are done and your license is given to you? But maybe it suggested to me, I felt that maybe people were not so much then confident in the training, the caliber, the type of training that people receive at these training centers. But Generally, let me make the point that, Alfred, the idea of teaching is a calling.
Teaching is a calling.
Teaching is a calling. You must be called into that profession to be able to teach. It's not just for anybody.
It's not a profession.
It is not. Teaching is not just for anybody. It is a calling. And so you must receive that calling to want to teach. So the students themselves that we teach, they know. When a called teacher appears before them, they know. And when somebody else also appears before them, they know. Now, it appears that for many years, many people have ventured into that profession without the calling on them. So you are done with school, or you are getting done with school, SHS, and then you see that your elder brother has been done with school and he's been home for 5 years. He's not found employment. Your elder sister has been home for 3 years. He's not found job. The commonsensical attitude is that then let me go and apply for teacher training colleges so that I'll become a teacher, because then it assures me or guarantee a certain job for me after school. And so many people have landed into that profession because of the fear of joblessness after school. They are not called. And so such people, they try mathematics and English, First World War, Second World War, and if they barely pass, they find themselves in that institution of training to become teachers. And so it becomes difficult. It will become difficult for such people when they are confronted with some of these basic things, because again, I say that to be a teacher, you must be academically smart and brilliant, because you are going to teach.
That's right.
You can. I mean, people don't want me to say these things, but it is the blunt truth. What bonwa? You can't be a teacher. It's as simple as that. And so I saw some of the spellings. Alfred, you are laughing. I saw some of the spellings.
Motivation.
And I said, these are not called teachers. They are people who ventured into that area because of the fear of joblessness after school. And so what do you expect? So I am sad. I am disappointed. My way out is that government and society in which we live in, we should strive hard to create more job openings, so that people who are not supposed to be teachers would not want to be teachers simply because they may be looking for a job. The other thing that I want to talk about is to question. Let's question these licensure people and their remarks that they've given and their verdicts that they've given. Let's subject it to some form of scrutiny.
You mean the National Teaching Council?
Yes, let us subject the verdict they've given to some form of scrutiny, because I am also thinking that, look, come on, who would spell headache Headic?
Dick.
Maybe they are also trying to offer a certain explanation. I'm saying this because I'm aware, and you are aware, that what we have told the IMF that we'll be doing this year and beyond is that we are going to freeze public sector employment. There's going to be public sector recruitment freeze. It is what we, among the kinds of austerity measures we decided to impose on ourselves to be able to secure assistance from IMF. We told them that if you give us the money, we will not recruit a lot of people into the public sector. There's actually going to be a freeze.
Yes.
Now, so if there's going to be a freeze and you have over 7,000 teachers, prospective teachers writing an exam, and then you are told that over 6,000 out of the 7,000 have failed, we must look at that verdict with some trepidation. Because for all we may know, it may be somebody's also an agenda that, look, I mean, this is in line with the new IMF deal. And if you pass all of them, it means Over 7,000 students, teachers are going to be recruited by the public sector, and the government may not be able to. And so I'm saying that I'm a teacher. I cannot support any move that humiliates prospective teachers. Okay, so I do not believe that it is fair to say that to put HEADIC there as a spelling for headache by a prospective teacher. But it may be possible that
that's actually what happened.
Well, you and I, we didn't see the script. You were not there. You didn't see the script. So I am saying that it is possible somebody may also be making up for a story.
So
Alfred,
no, I just want to make a point.
You can't discount this hypothesis.
All these
Yes,
you saw
yes.
actually from the scripts of the.
Did you see the script?
The script, we have copies of it.
You have copies?
We have copies of it.
You are sure?
So we'll actually make them available to you.
Yes.
So that you see.
Well,
In fact, now. But then, point is that be that as it's made that your derivation may have some basis. Does it also take away the fundamental concern about how these people got to this point in the first place? Because they've gone through the mail.
Yes, how this you see and as I said, how they got through, how they got here is also, in my view, one of the explanatory variables for the institutionalization of the licensure exam. It appears that the idea of asking another body to be hosting or conducting licensure exam for teachers is that then we do not really trust the kind of education and training that people go through at the training centers and at the colleges of education. And most of them, we are told, do some of these things via distance. And we know the challenges that many students go through when they are doing their degrees or certificates through distance. They go through a lot of challenges. Many of the universities do not, or training centers do not even see them as students. The treatment meted out to them is quite shabby. And so to sit in your home and be involved in so many things, when we were students, we focused on our books. Right. We were just students. I mean, you either want to be a student or you don't want to be a student. So when I was a student, I stopped everything and I focused on my books. And so you cannot be doing so many things as a distance learning. So people are traders, people are mechanics, people are doing all manner of things. And then at the same time, they said, I'm a distance learning student. And they do not even have the focus. And sometimes if you go and meet your instructor, the sheer numbers, and you meet them if like once a month, okay? The sheer numbers is such that no meaningful tutoring and education can be, our knowledge can be imparted to the students. So they are left on their own. And so there is also a fundamental problem with the quality of education or teacher training we give out to some of these prospective teachers. But generally...
Can I
yes,
piggyback on what,
because you're a member of the
committee,
in fact, the deputy ranking member of the education committee. The point Professor Gyampo raises about probing the National Teaching Council's own verdict on this, so that we understand some detail of how this over 6,000 failure rate came about, and for you, the committee, to also ascertain beyond what the NTC is saying, maybe the reasons why we are having this huge failure rate, so that we put the issues in perspective, that it's not probably just because we cannot, the suspicion that employs so much, we use this as a means of legitimizing that approach.
Yes, Alfred, that is why in my submission, I made the case that the Oversight Committee has a responsibility to drill deep and find out what the issue is. You know, we can't just take these numbers on face value, giving all the dynamics that I had earlier on enumerated. You see, I didn't want to be as direct as Professor Gyampo. But
unfortunately, that's how I've always been.
The view that he espoused is one that I have also pondered over. And indeed, it is in circulation. And so we cannot discount it, because if you look at the sheer numbers of this year's failure rate, and you look at the trend from the inception of the exam, something is definitely wrong. And we can only get to the bottom of what actually has happened if we hold a hearing and bring in stakeholders, including the NTC, to find out why this is the case. Because make no mistake, within the environment of the teacher training processes, the quota system has been reintroduced. A lot of people are not aware. The quota system is back. So, for example, this year's enrollments, we have teacher colleges of education that usually would have taken about 300 students, compared to take 200, and in some cases 150. We know that all of this was in preparation to address what is now the obvious, to cut down on public expenditure. So it cannot be entirely dismissed.
What was the reason given for the reintroduction of the quota system? Because I know that came to the committee's attention before it...
No, it didn't come to the committee's attention. In fact, we heard it in the public space, and some of us made it a public issue. And in fact, we challenged government of reneging on a promise made. Because again, if you look at the run-up to the 2016 election and what our opponents in the MPP were saying against an earlier decision, policy that had taken effect, to take away allowances in lieu of allowing prospective teachers to take the student loan. We were told that if they had the opportunity to govern, they could do both the allowances and still maintain an open door policy where every prospective teacher who qualifies to go to a college of education would go. So when they introduced the quota system, we raised that and called them out on it. But the point I'm seeking to make is that we cannot discount the propensity of a very smart and fertile brain to introduce a much more stringent process seeking to reduce the numbers that would otherwise will be employed by the state. So what I'm saying is that given all of these dynamics and all the suspicions and all the renditions, the only way to get to the bottom of this issue is to invite the stakeholders and scrutinize, including, as Prof has said, critically examining what the NTC has put up. I think that is the best way forward.
And now, but if you look at the conclusions, and then Prof, just as you requested, some of these, the question, the answer sheets that we saw made available to you, and extract of which we put on the screen. But because the committee's work is critical in establishing exactly what led to this, Professor Gyampo, eventually, if the National Teaching Council and the other stakeholders, Ghana National Association of Teachers, the Colleges of Education Teachers Association of Ghana, CTAC, they've also been speaking about this outcome. What are some of the specific areas of interest that they should be looking at so as to establish exactly what is going on? Professor Gyampo.
Well, I think, like I said earlier, let them go back to review the quality of training and teaching that goes on at the various training and teaching centers. That's number one. And like I highlighted earlier, you don't expect any better training of a prospective teacher who goes about his effort to be trained through this distance learning program that treats students or prospective training, prospective teachers as second-class students. The facilities and the infrastructure are so severely underdeveloped, such that no meaningful impartation of knowledge can go on there. And so the committee may want to look at the quality of the training programs. And then also we must, as a nation, understand, as I indicated earlier, that teaching is not just for anybody. Right. And so let us be sure that those who put themselves out there to want to be teachers are people who, first of all, have that kind of calling on their lives. Teaching should not be because I will not find a job to do, and so then let me find it. And people say that as for teaching is just a stepping stone. Who told you? I want to be a teacher. That's why I'm teaching. It's not a stepping stone to anywhere. And so it doesn't make sense for people to want to go into that noble profession simply because that is a stepping stone, or that is the only way they can be employed. Let the processes and let the economy be expanded. You see, up to now, politicians are still telling us about the problems confronting the country. Up to now, 7 years into the administration of the current regime, we are still diagnosing our problems. So when will we solve our problems and expand the economy such? And I've told my students, level 300 governance and leadership students, they know the essence of governance is to solve problems and not to explain problems. It appears that we are always in love with those who explain problems. When they explain and pontificate the problems, we love them, we feel they can. There's difference between pontificating and explanation of the problem and solving them. But we are still solving problems. We are still explaining problems, even now. And so, let us move away from problem explanation to fixing problems and to expanding the economy such that young men, young women will not see teaching a profession into which they may not have a calling. They may not see it as a way of guaranteeing their potential joblessness, after school. And so let the committee look at let it be broad and holistic in looking at all these facets of the problems with a view to ensuring that these things do not recur. Frankly, it's a shame. If it is really true, then it's a shame. But I'm also repeating the fact that it may also be some propagandistic results, because the government has told us that there's going to be public sector recruitment freeze. And I'm not seeing how passing all the 7,000 teachers would fare in relation to the government's agenda of telling us that even if you qualify, we will not recruit you because it's an IMF conditionality that we have imposed on ourselves. So let's look at things holistically. Let us not swallow hook, line, and sinker what Christian Daipoko and his team are telling us. Let us interrogate it properly, because for all one may know, there may be other hidden variables.
Well, that's where Dr. Clement Apak, your committee is very crucial in all of this. As we go on, I'll show to you exactly the impact of the IMF program on the education sector, and you see it quite clearly. So this is the fundamental question now that is begging for an answer would definitely come from the work of your committee.
Yes.
If eventually you pick this up as an issue
legitimately so. And I think the only entity, as we speak today, that is clothed with the requisite authority and that the public would trust to do justice to a matter of this nature should be the Parliamentary Select Committee on Education, largely because, it is composed of representation, from both sides of the aisle. And so until that is done, you cannot fault others for, proposing what is possible under the current dispensation. And these are very, cogent proposals to make. I mean, you can't take anything off the table, given where we are. But you see, Professor Gyampo also touched on a matter that I think we need to keep in mind and not lose sight of, which is the training processes and the fact that teaching is a calling. I think that also then raises the issue of how those who go to train as teachers are admitted into the colleges of education or other university programs that prepare them to become teachers, and in fact, they are quality. So make no mistake, the issue of quality cannot be taken off the table. And so if we are going to look at it, all of these variables must come into play. And I raise the issue of quality also because in the 2023 presentation that was made to us by the National Teaching Council to justify its budgetary request, there was an item 19, titled Entrance Examination. And I was very curious when I saw that. So as you all expect, I asked Dr. Ade, why entrance exam? What does that mean? It turns out that, you know, the National Teaching Council had even made a proposal to government. And that had even gotten to cabinet about the introduction of an entrance examination. So the proposition is that before you even gain entrance into a college of education or to go and train as a teacher, you must pass an entrance examination. The question then is, why is there the need? Why are they proposing an entrance exam? And they had asked that we approve 7.8 million Ghana cedis. And we had said no. I had raised the objection.
This was in the 2020.
Yes, I have it here. I have the document here. I had said no. We cannot approve this amount since this policy is yet to be approved by government. By cabinet. Until it is approved by cabinet, we cannot give you a blank check. What if cabinet does not approve the policy to institute an entrance exam in with regards to training of teachers? So all of these issues must be part of the dialogue. So we see where the issues are. But this is not in any way trying to suggest that all the issues that Prof has raised do not merit interrogation. I think they all merit very serious and critical interrogation based on figures. We need to see the trends. We need to see the sample questions. We need to see the marking scheme. Some of us are good enough to be able to analyze and to determine if something untoward has happened somewhere to trigger this colossal failure. And so until we do this critical analysis as a committee, looking at all the variables, interrogating all the information, bringing before us all the stakeholders, I think it will be too quick for us to point fingers at the persons who have failed. I am very reluctant. In all my discussion on this matter, I've restrained myself to point fingers and to accuse the over 6,000 individuals who have failed that they are dunderheads or omabong. Clearly, a beer bong. But to tell me that this colossal number, it is impossible. Some people may not be up to purpose. They may not be fit for purpose. But the sheer number, the number.
Over 6,000 out of 7,000.
As my senior brother and mentor Kwesi Pratt will say, Alibaraka. It's too much. It's too big in Hausa.
But you see, we look at that it's not the entire, we understand it has components. Some of them who are resitting the exam, they failed last year, and some of them are resitting, others are actually sitting for the first time. Let me introduce Lawyer Martin Pebo joining us now. Good morning, lawyer. Welcome.
Yeah, morning.
So, bring you in quickly on this one because Dr. Clement Apak wanted to touch briefly on this, the IMF impact, and then also the issues that have been raised. But with this 7,728 prospective teachers who retook this licensure exam, and then also others who were sitting for the first time, we had some 1,277, just some 1,277, about 16.5% passing, and then about 83.5% failing. And that's what the two teachers have been analyzing the plausibility of what could have led to this, and the fundamental questions, probing exactly what the case, especially because the Education Committee has taken interest in this matter. Dr. Clement Apak, Deputy Ranking Member on that committee. Quick one on this.
Okay, good. So I wear many hats, at least when it comes to teaching. I think I've done about 10 years, right?
10 years of teaching?
Mm-hmm. In Accra Poly and Central University. And I'm not done. I think I'm a teacher.
You are still teaching?
Yeah, actually, I love the profession.
We don't know. We don't know this.
This is quite a revelation.
That's why you have a lot of money.
Somebody said I'm a disappointed lawyer. So, well, yeah, so... I mean, well, you look at this matter and you see that straight away. I heard when I was coming, I was monitoring you guys. Prof said it, and then Dr. Park also said it. When you see such a high number of failure, okay, or the high percentage like this, the first person you'll be looking at is the examiner, straight. No curve, no bend. Yeah. Or let's say the setup, the institutional setup for the exams. Those who mark, those who have set the questions, the whole architecture. They are the first culprits. It can't be the students when you see such a huge number. Oh, trust me. Yeah, it can't be. It's a setup. It's a setup. You are the first. So you heard. Look, and the fact when you started it, the part I listened to, you did the interviews, right? Now, the first person I heard, the guy was so eloquent, and he said that this man failed. He said such a guy failed. Yeah, he was very honest, candid about it. That, well, they say I failed the threshold. He raised very poignant issues. And you say that such a person failed. Of course, I know spelling is one thing. And of course, I'll come back to the spelling.
We've got the issues of general expressions and all. But how do you relate that with...
No, and as for the spelling, let's even debunk it straight away. No, have we checked in every population? Well, so we'll come back. I will develop the institutional framework for the exams further. But I want us to quickly debunk the matter of these spellings we are showing up there. Look, in every population, there are those who are dyslexic. I don't know how we factored in there. So the fact that I can't spell headache, does that mean the whole script is bad? That I can't spell middle, punctual. So, no, that shouldn't be the end. Every population, look, you look through the system, go on the net, every population, you will find that a percentage, they say 9 to 20% can't spell well. Look, and there are very famous and successful people who are dyslexic. So when we say dyslexia, some people, the problems with spelling. Yeah, it's, what do you call it? What's the word? So you see, even I'm struggling to find a word. So will you say, because people can't find a word, I'm not good enough to teach. They're like born with it. Born with it. You don't buy it. It's not because your teachers weren't good. Look, very famous people. Steven Spielberg, the film director. Richard Branson, Virgin Atlantic. So many, R. Kelly. One of them, is it Einstein or one of them, which there was this famous scientist. So many. Dyslexic. And yet, they've, changed this world. So, Charles Schwab, Ted Turner, CNN. The founder of CNN, dyslexic. William Hewlett, Henry Ford. Go on. Steve Jobs. Apple.
In fact,
go on and on. Tommy Hilfiger. You wear his clothing and you're like, wow, this is Tommy Hilfiger. He's dyslexic. Okay, and so on and on. So it's a matter that, so I'm happy the two professors have mentioned it. We may just be discussing this matter out of context because we don't have the full report. We don't know what went into it. And so I think we should, maybe we've raised the matter. So for me, the upshot of this discussion is that the regulatory body will have to sit down. They are the ones who have failed, not the students.
The regulatory body?
Yes.
Where exactly is their
That's
issue?
Why I said
especially because they put up set the questions. In fact, this is not the first time. Maybe with the failure rate this year, actually maybe higher, or is higher than all the other years we have seen.
Yes.
But these people, they set up the questions. The students sat for the exam and then failed.
Yes, it's a regulatory body that
Where
failed. It's
does
not
the
the
regulator
students.
have to answer questions?
The student, you heard, and this is my co-panelist professors, very distinguished ones, are that they've mentioned it. You're going to an exam, they've not shown you the syllabus. You're going to an exam, you've not seen marking scheme, and you say that's fair.
Do you have to see the marking scheme?
Yes.
Of the student?
Yes.
I mean, the student has to see the marking scheme?
Yes. That should be fair so that you know that, okay, emphasis will be placed here, there. I mean, look, we've moved away from these ambush exams. Ambush exam. And don't forget, a few years ago, in the legal profession, we had the same problem. Only 128 students passed out of thousands. Yeah, it became a topical issue. There was so much furore. And you see that the Board of Legal Education and the Independent Exam Council, they came in and then they made some changes. And in the past 3 years, about over 1,000 consistently have been enrolled.
So you show the law students their marking scheme, so they are aware of...
Well, not maybe to...
I support showing marking scheme. This ambush thing is over. We are so
because as far as I know, they don't see marking scheme.
No, I'm saying let's be progressive. You're going to show marking scheme that when we're in secondary school, there were books that, so like for the previous year, so that you know that constant, this how it is. So let's say, what do you say, English. Then they'll tell you, okay, the script, each essay, maybe 30 or 40 marks. They'll show you organization, mechanical accuracy, etc. Right? Maths. Yeah, so show everything ahead of time so that the students learn, they know what goes into marking the script. Then they can prepare sufficiently. Why are you hiding information from them? I don't see it. I don't. So, like we're saying, back to the point, we can learn from the reforms in the legal sector, okay, the legal profession. When the only 128 students passed out of the several thousands, Board of Legal Education and the Independent Exam Council, they came out, they did the reforms, and now at least it's far better. So this is where we should learn. And please, let's not, take it out of context. It's normal for you not to be able to spell these words that you've stated. Okay, we just mentioned dyslexia. You check, those of us listening, you attempt to spell dyslexia and you see whether you can spell it. So does that mean that you are not good, your certificates are worthless because you can't spell a few words?
In fact, if you look at the failure rate from what I'm seeing, even compared to this year, last year was higher. In fact, we saw some 8,400 last year. And so there's been a reduction as well. But at this point, do you show or do you support that call Lawyer Martin Pebo is making about letting students know the marking scheme? Is this something you do?
No, I think that you can have materials that guide students as to how to answer questions. But if you set questions and then you give out the marking scheme, then there is no exam. Okay. So you can generally have material that aids. And when we're in secondary school, we had materials that you read and then they aided you to know which areas to focus on and in answering questions. Because I remember there were some lecturers when I was a student who could even come and read the questions to you. These are the questions you are going to answer. Mm-hmm. They read it to you. But what becomes the crux of the matter is for you to know which areas of your lectures and your readings you must bring, and so then he keeps the marking scheme to his chest. So you must decipher and be able to break into which areas you must focus on, which areas you must write on, and which areas you must not write on. And that's the reason why some people get punished for answering topics rather than answering questions. There's a difference between answering topics. There's a student you quiz or you ask a question, and then he provides or produces everything that you have taught, in that area on that topic for you. And as if to say that, well, you yourself pick what is good and then leave the... No. You are trained to answer questions. But every question has a focus, and it is the focus that determines the marking scheme, which the lecturer keeps to his chest. But I agree that to be able to be proactive, we can... yes, not share marking scheme, but there can be other guides that students can read in addition to their research to know how to answer questions. But the point again I want to make is to emphasize, and he's also made that point. Take a second look, approach the verdict that has been given by these licensure people with some trepidation, because I insist that an IMF conditionality can be part of the explanatory variable for this kind of abysmal performance.
Simply put, we must take this with a pinch of salt.
So that will be established, and that's why your committee has some work to do. In fact, if you look at the, and I know you have the statistics of the number of students who sat for this exam last year compared to this year and the previous years as well. So you know that the failure rate that we're even alarmed about this year is actually lesser than what we saw last year.
No, I disagree.
We're talking about the number of students involved.
In terms of percentages?
In terms of figures, raw figures.
That is not what my data tells me. I'll cross-check that. I'll cross-check that. But this is why we actually need to sit down with the examining body. Because I'm also now getting some new information that this particular exam that we are talking about was purposely taken by those who had taken it previously and failed. That first time teachers who had just completed college did not participate in this. And theirs is going to be in August. So there's a lot.
So that's why there's a reduction.
There's a lot that is not even known to all of us. But you see, let me make this point. I find it unacceptable, objectionable, for the National Teaching Council to put out scripts to demonstrate or try to justify why students have failed. I find that objectionable.
It is unprofessional.
What is the purpose of that?
It's unprofessional.
Why would you do that?
It's unprofessional.
This is certainly objectionable, it is condemnable, and must not be tolerated.
It's unprofessional.
I'm even a member of the Committee on Education. We are discussing this matter. I have not seen such a script.
It's unprofessional.
I don't even fully understand the magnitude. So what was the motivation to put out this in the public domain, if not perhaps to achieve
a certain
narrative? You see, all of these are the reasons why those who are advancing the idea that there could be some ulterior motive behind these colossal numbers that have failed ought to be taken seriously, because I truly do not understand why the National Teaching Council felt the need to make public and publicize scripts and even discuss the content of scripts. To what end?
Otherwise,
I find that very
in the school, in the university, why don't we go out there when students do have problems with exam scores? We don't show them their scripts. If you have a problem, you go for remarking. We don't take scripts out there and then show it to people. It's unprofessional.
That's why your committee.
Briefly. Okay. Yes, I heard them on another network also complaining. So meaning that they didn't put it out those scripts officially. Because I heard there was a reference, something that he was very livid that the scripts were out and people were discussing them.
But so it's possible they ought to come out.
Let me
on other networks,
on record that
I heard them speaking to the scripts.
People who have put out these scripts are not officials of the National Teaching Council. That's number one.
So is their system so porous that people can get in and then just pick scripts and then put them in the public domain?
How did that happen? They will tighten up now that we are taking them on.
Well, while we round up, Dr. Clement Apak, it still comes back to you, because if you look at the specific numbers, not percentages, in 2022, you made that point about another group sitting for the exam. Because if you look at the numbers, in 2022, 120,000 people sat for this, and 44,000 failed. But in 2021, 19,000 sat, and 8,400 failed. So the reduction in numbers probably is explained by the point you're making about another group also sitting the exam at a different time, sometime in August.
That's correct.
As well. But then there is a fundamental concern about the failure in terms of numbers, not percentages, over the years, where you see 44,000, 8,400. That should also be another matter of concern to the committee if you're going to probe this beyond everything else that we've talked about.
Yes, I think that I would suggest to my colleagues, obviously the chair and the ranking, that we should take a holistic approach to this. We shouldn't just confine it to the current issue. We ought to go back and look at it from the onset and look at all the dynamics, all the variables over time. I think that will be the best way we can serve this nation. I mean, when these things come up, it then gives policymakers and lawmakers the opportunity to take a more holistic approach and do a thorough examination and analysis of the issue. And you can't do that based on the specific variable that is currently presenting itself.
Right.
You must go back in time and try to do it. And so let's see if there are some trends that can emerge. And that is where we will be able to decipher and pinpoint and to see if indeed, as Prof. Gyampo has not failed to indicate almost at every submission that perhaps there is some other motivation attributable to what we are witnessing. So I would like to beg leave.
We'll wait for the outcome of the committee's work. Indeed, Dr. Clement Apak is Deputy Ranking on the Education Committee of Parliament and also Member of Parliament for the Bosa South constituency. Stay with me. We'll be back shortly after this quick break. This is Key Point on TV3. We're live on 3 FM 92.7. Our next conversation, we're taking a trip into the Asin North constituency. A lot is happening there ahead of the by-election on Tuesday. Stay with us.